Their audio is on the stream. Heh, there we go.
Oh, uh,
All right, now the audio should be on. Oopsies.
there's a thing there on my face actually.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you know what? It's because the uh Discord is constantly yelling at me about new audio inputs.
Oh,
It's like
and
anytime it sees something, it like throws up a message. It's like I'm actually good. I don't need you to do that, Discord.
Ethereal Monkey is like, are we supposed to be hearing something
Yeah,
here?
that was what caused me to check the audio, and it should be working now. So,
Hey,
ta-da!
Ethereal Monkey, oh, you can hear us. Oh, all the conversation we were sharing between each other just this past minute or so.
Yeah, yeah. Oopsies.
I'm Drew Williams. I'm the guy who sculpted these figures.
Yeah, well, not
And
this
here I
one.
am.
I like happened to throw in a random
Yeah, what's it mixed in with?
what's it called Scavy from Necromunda. There's a guy who goes to the Nova Open every year, who like has a booth, and he sells just like he's just got buckets of old metal models, and they're kind of they're market priced. They're not cheap. He
Mhm.
knows what he's got, but every once in a while I find one that I really like, and so I usually pick up one or two models from him a year, unless I find some really like cheap bodies that I want to use for conversions. Um, I've gotten a lot of
When you
old like Rogue Trader Eldar off of him over the years.
when you say buckets, do you mean just like buckets full of metal that you have to sort through?
No, it's organized by baggy, but they're in like those sterilite tubs, and you like open it
Okay.
up and there's just like dozens of baggies of old models in a sterilite tub. So it is kind of like a bucket of models.
It's better for the figures that way, I guess.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there is experience a certain amount of pleasure rooting around in a whole bucket of like used lead
Oh
and
yes.
coming up with some
Yes, that would be very enjoyable.
shame.
So,
Came up with the starting 15 or so of my of an Eldar collection that Space Elf collection.
right.
It was down in the bottom of a box one day at what's that? Kubla in
Uh-huh.
San Francisco in 2015.
Uh-huh.
That was sweet.
That's awesome.
It's like, do you here? And the guy just shrugged his shoulders. Okay, you'll buy these for $10.
Right, right. I've gotten all kinds of weird stuff for good deals. I got the Lady Jane, um, the like Space Warrior Jane or whatever from Rogue Trader. I got her for like $30 because somebody mislabeled the model on eBay, and that was a good one. That made me happy. Because like I think she retails. She like goes for like 100 $120. It's like I'm not gonna pay that for a single model.
No, no.
It's too much. But I would definitely pay $30 to own like a piece of a piece of GW history, especially since
Sure.
I picked it up while I was kind of waiting for your sister's models to come in the mail, and so it was just like
Uh,
perfect. It was like kismet that I bumped into the model when I did. I'm coming over with a Vallejo pure white over that creamier white to try to give it a little bit more highlight up top.
is that wet on?
What's that?
You just did it.
Yep.
Is that wet on? You just did it, so it must still be wet.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Forgive me,
Well,
I'm a terrible painter. Some people might disagree, but when it comes to the time put in at the studio, it's hard for me to justify painting when I can make bank by sculpting for the same amount of time.
right.
It
Yeah,
really
that's totally
makes
makes
sense.
sense.
Most of my studio is full of like my figures primed with Tamiya fine prime. I swear by, and I'm always looking. I'm like, now I'm gonna paint you, and I look at it and I'm like,
But
so
not
I've
this
got to
day.
contact painter friends and spread the stuff around.
Yeah, exactly.
Page like because my catalog is just Ray.
Yeah, yeah. No, you got to get it. You got to get that stuff painted just for the like. You got to have the like studio display case.
Yeah. And also, I mean, not to speak, low of us, but sometimes we don't know what we want to do with figures until we see it.
Yeah, that's
So
a
when you see figures actually painted, it either gives you the idea to do exactly what they did, or it informs your mind and say, I can do that, but with something different. But it's a
right,
launching point for your
right.
imagination.
Absolutely.
And when you just provide them as just like prime, it doesn't kick the imagination off quite as quite as well.
Right.
So that's on my to-do list. Sending my stuff to different people.
Yeah, yeah. Here I am coming in with an oil wash of black to kind of go into those nice metal recesses. There's nothing quite like the like crispness of a pewter model.
Yeah.
I like
Are you saying an
plastic. I
actual
don't
oil
super
wash
like
or
resin,
oil
but
washes?
what's that?
Are you saying an actual oil wash or oil washes in the color of oil, like
Oil
the
wash,
wash
yeah,
itself?
using white spirit uh and black oil paint.
So what are you painting with? Are you working with like I assumed you were going to be working with acrylics.
Yeah, most of it
And
will
you
be acrylics, but I do an
and it,
oil wash as like an intermediary step.
I always thought oil washes would like um, resist subsequent layers of acrylic.
Yeah, you can do it. You just got to go real thin with it. Like it's very
You're getting
subtle the amount of oil in the spirit. The spirit evaporates
oh,
nicely.
every so often I'm like so I'm watching your stream. I'm watching the stream in delayed fashion.
Right.
So all of my are like a whole gosh, it looks like the whole minute delay or something.
Yeah, I think it is a
And
pretty big delay.
and so right now I'm just now watching you working on the loader.
It's a
Every time I look up, I'm like, oh, you switched to something else.
yeah, yeah, I'm kind of I'm just sort of getting that base layer down on each thing and then get that gives it everything time to dry and I come back around and work on the next thing.
I was really excited to do that loader once I settled on it. I was like, oh, I've got to have that figure done. Because
Yeah,
there are a lot of people who were people were asking me, hey, you gonna do any more of those old hammer robots? And it's in my mind, but that was the first time that I like had an application for an old hammer robot.
right. Yeah.
Um,
No, it's a really lovely model. I haven't figured out what I'm gonna do, what rules I'm gonna use for maybe the Ogren like sidekick because I'm gonna use these guys for Necromunda at some point. Um, because I've got this crew here, uh, which I can show on the other camera. Uh, I've got this crew of it's like a mix of some old dwarves that I like. They're from one of the Warhammer Fantasy starter sets that I got from my stepdad, and then I got one of the like Mantic space dwarves, and then I've got two of the actual old squats, the like general, and the he had like an aide with a flag and a grenade. I put a grenade launcher on him, not originally a grenade launcher.
that's a true old hammer collection.
Yeah, I'm like always kind of like, well, do I cut up this like old model? I'm like, yeah, why not? Like,
So I was originally planning on having some more dwarves ready right about now, actually.
oh yeah,
No, it doesn't do me any good to talk about it, but I'm kind of brokenhearted that they still haven't come to fruition.
it,
Um,
is it
Hopefully
just
they can.
a scheduling issue or?
Well, I had some personal issues come up. A lot of personal issues collide in the month of August, and it's late September, and I'm still only now recovering from it.
Right. Oh,
All kinds of nonsense.
that's fair. Yeah, I've summer was rough for me. My dog passed away at the end of the spring, and then it was just like that my kids were home, the entire summer, and so it was just constant, constant having to take care of them and family visiting. Oh my God, all summer, whole summer, it's just people in town, and like I got almost no podcasting, no streaming, no like only like 3 YouTube videos the whole time. It's like, oh, this is I'm not I'm dropping the ball here.
To your staff, could you?
What's that?
You couldn't outsource the problems to your staff and have to take care of it for you.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I'm stuck I'm stuck running the house here. All right.
So I've got four more space dwarves on skyboards.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, the
Yeah,
trick is like getting them up so they're ready to cast.
right. Yeah, that's the one model from the your dwarves that I haven't bought yet. It's a good one. But
Yeah, he's fun.
I'm looking forward to seeing a variety of them because that's a it's such a fun theme.
Um, I'm relatively satisfied with them, but they're kind of samey. I mean, my problem with the dwarves on the skyboards, as I've created them, is that there's only so many different poses you can strike a dwarf on a skyboard.
Right.
So they all kind of have wet. And as a developer, even someone who's doing kind of a rip off stuff of the old timey feel, I still try to mix and match mix up the silhouettes so they all have different poses and they're dramatic in the changes. And I'm not getting that with the skyboards.
There's just not that
Kind
much
of focus.
range of body that you can really even accomplish with a.
Yeah, the limbs are so small, and the theme is pretty restricted. But also, I'm dead set on making sure that pretty much all of my figures are single piece cast figures, just like the old days. So, with those kinds of limitations, trying to squeeze out, but that's the challenge I made for myself. When I call it the Old Hammer Project, my thing, the
uh,
Old Hammer Project is a challenge to myself to emulate and simulate the process that the guys went through back in the 80s. That's what the
right.
project is. I could sculpt all sorts of things, but this is about me constraining myself within a very tight window and seeing if I could get it done just like that. It's a fascination of
Yeah, well, and
mine. And
it shows. I mean, like there's just a really appealing aspect to like just getting a metal model that's one piece. Like
yeah,
the more you have to glue them, the more problems you're gonna have with them over time.
and it's a completely different aesthetic. Then the figure
Yeah,
may look, but it switches into a different aesthetic. Um, yeah, like, and that's the thing. It's like I was at God, it was a while ago. I think I did a lot of things in 2015. In 2015, I think it was at War Games Foundry for one of their annual what do you call it? Forgetting the name of it. Bring out your lead. Bring
yeah,
out your lead.
yeah.
Bring out your lead. Oil. Bring out your lead. Where about like 60 to 70 over the course of a weekend, Old Hammer players convene and they play Old Hammer stuff. And of course, this is War Games Foundry, so you've got Brian Ansell and his family there,
Right.
and and people like Rick Priestley will drop in for kicks, and all the other gang, and most of the time Tony Ackland manages to get there too. You know, he's getting on in years. He works really hard to get his ass over there and sit down with his cane and point and look at everybody's latest creations, and it's really fun. It's really fun. But yeah, when I went there in 2015, I think it was Ansel I was talking to. I was either Ansel or somebody else who was like deeply involved in development back in the 80s. And fundamentally, Jess Goodwin, Bob Naismith, all the guys there, the Perry twins, they would create all sorts of stuff, but only some of it would get produced. A lot of the
Right.
times they'd bring it like Brian's table or somebody else's, like, or maybe I forget some names right at the moment. But they would, the sculptors would just sculpt. They bring the stuff to the table, and they would look at it, and like some of its stuff is just like, nah, that's going to be casting trouble. It's particularly Brian, as I understand. He was just like all about making sure that the figures that they were going to put in the molds would just like spin non-stop, and the molds would last a long time. But to do that, they have to be single axis figures. As few undercuts as possible, no multi-parting, please. Just knock them out quick.
Right.
And so that's a really small hole to fit your creativity through.
Yeah,
And
for
then, and
sure.
then so everything is like flat. Their arm is up this way, this arm is this way. There's only so many poses you can strike with a figure, and then you have to try to be creative with that. What I'm saying is that I'm trying to do that with the Space Dwarf um, Skyboarders. They're not terribly varied right now, so I'm a little disappointed in myself with them.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's
I haven't
fair.
seen yet.
That it's
I might
it's
just have to do that.
it's
It's
it's still
old hand
a very
behind
fun
me.
concept.
Put this in my cooker. Just a moment.
All right.
Yeah, I had part of my old hammer um, project, however, the challenge to myself was also that I would produce X number of figures per month. So now I'm a whole month off from that personal
Right.
goal. So thank you for doing the stream. It keeps me on the ball.
Yeah, for
That's the other
sure.
reason that I did those uploads where I was sharing my joy of receiving the troll soup samples.
Right.
Um, because it was content I could share with people. Yes, it's not from my store per se, but it is Old Hammer themed, and I did sculpt them, so here they are.
Well, yeah. I mean, the fact that you sculpted them, that I didn't know that those models were on sale. So are they
Hmm.
are they not quite on sale yet? Or are they?
Well, last I checked in with Troll Soup, they said that they had some stock in resin, and they're planning to do, surprising to me, some more metal casting. I'm not sure exactly why, but they're keen on getting some more metal casting of the products done,
Nice.
particularly in their exosuit figures.
Yeah, yeah.
People who know might know about those. So I'm excited about that. I'm very curious to see what they do when they're casting the metal dreadnought. I mean, that thing is huge. It's nearly
Right.
3 inches tall. That's going to be a lot of metal. I can't imagine it selling for anything less than
Yeah,
$60, maybe. I
I
don't know.
almost wonder if they'll do like a hollow kind of thing or something. Because I know that
Well, it's already got spaces in the middle.
Oh,
Best I
okay.
could do. I was even just for resin casting.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, because that's a lot of material.
but it was particularly designed to Bob Naismith's style. So there's only so much I could do with it, creatively speaking.
Right. Yeah.
Scope of my project. I got so many other things I really want to get into fantasy more,
Uh huh.
but for the most part, every appetite is for the Rogue Trader material, which kind of,
Well,
a little
it's
disappointing.
a very fun aesthetic. Like it's kind of
It is. It's very
wacky and
fast,
it's
and it
very very
a lot of
80s.
yeah, and it doesn't take a lot of commitment to collect it because each one's an individual personality. Whereas fantasy, you kind of commit yourself to just buying a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, fantasy is
Yeah.
very, yeah, like that ranked hordes kind of thing.
Mhm. I mean, I recently released the Skelly Bobs a few
Yeah,
months
yeah.
ago. A lot of people bought them, but not as many as I had hoped. Because in terms of fantasy collection, there's just not as many people out there.
Oh, right. I
40K.
looked at them and I was like, those are awesome. I love skeletons, but that's a big,
You told me a whole horde of skeletons today.
it's a big commitment. Not just from like a like collecting standpoint, but like that, like it would be a whole other thing to paint that has nothing to do with anything else I'm working on.
It's definitely a change of mindset and a change of technique. I have got to get this torso larger. This sucks. Where did I put my?
Oops, bumping the mic.
Hey, one of these. Yeah, I was live streaming the year before I left San Francisco to move to Michigan. And I've been in Michigan for a year now, and I still haven't resumed my live stream. I feel
Yeah.
bad about it, but the matter is that live streaming sculpting doesn't really work for me in the long run. I enjoy streaming, enjoy talking, clearly. And I enjoy sculpting, obviously. But have a hard time creating products while streaming, particularly when I'm like, attending to my audience.
Oh
This is
yeah.
your audience, so I'm
It
not
it's a
on
lot
the
to think
spot.
about. Yeah. Uh, I can imagine not wanting like I know a few creators who live stream their editing, like as they edit their videos or whatever. I'm like, I could not do that.
No, too much multitasking. You're already creating product right there.
Yeah, it's too meta for me. I like my like warts to be like shown only to me when I'm editing. It's a whole thing. I mean, you know, with YouTube, it's all about that hours watched. So like, uh, I get wanting to like, yeah, I'm gonna be spending the 6 hours editing anyway. I might as well, be able to monetize it while I'm doing it. So I get why they do it, but God.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, you have to be very popular for anyone to want to watch that.
Probably, probably part of the volume. Once you get to a certain point, you just show them everything you're doing. Here I am, buttering my toast.
Right, exactly. Oh, it almost like feels like it gets to be too much. That's the part of like being an internet personality that like kind of wigs me out. Like I like sharing my projects and kind of showing people what I'm working on and yeah, it's a very fun thing to do and I think a lot of people, get a lot out of it, but it's a like daunting thing to kind of commit to like being in the public eye. Like I can't just like disappear for a month or 3 months or whatever.
You have to. You're obligated to a schedule. It's one of the
Exactly.
key things. Can't meet that schedule on a regular basis. I mean, that's half the work.
Yep.
Yep. I am thinking about resuming. My trick, my problem is that I take on a lot of commissions. I do anywhere around 1,000 to $3,000 worth of commissions in a month.
Right.
And I've tried to wean myself back from that to just like K or so a month and just do the rest of the month with my old hammer project. But, there's still a couple of jobs on my desk that have been here since before August that have to go.
Right.
And there's a couple other clients on the wings that are waiting to start new stuff up. And it's hard to say no, but what I'm getting at is that if I do restart my stream, it's going to be once I have other people's projects off my table, because most of the time they don't want their stuff shown online until they're ready to make their release, which
Of
is understandable.
course. Yes, absolutely.
And so, like right now, the stuff I'm doing right now, I can't show you guys. This is not my property. But if I'm doing my Old Hammer project, or I actually have another project beyond Old Hammer project in the future that I'm going to be doing, totally different thing, completely different.
uh,
Um, I'll be able to work on it and stream it, and no pressure, no pressure from the client, no pressure from me. I can just take my time. That's my dream. I
yeah.
just have my own work, nobody else's, and I can just stream it at my leisure. And then maybe I'll be able to like maintain a format where I just turn on the camera and say, "Hello, see ya," and I just work. If somebody
Yeah.
has a question, they can.
Yeah, it's definitely a different kind of thing between working on client work and working for yourself.
Also, it's a matter of vision. I mean, let's be real. Old Hammer Project is kind of easy in a sense because the aesthetic is already there. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to fit what somebody else has already developed in terms of theme and feel and scale and all the little things that go there. But when it comes to somebody else's project, they have their needs, and we can forget their needs while I'm talking to people.
Right, of course.
Whereas the old hammer thing, like when I was streaming, I just talk. Clearly, when when I was streaming 2 years ago, one of my favorite streams before I stopped doing it, the one that worked out the best, forget the client's name. Somebody paid me and told me that I could go ahead and stream it. Development of the word again, um, raised Caledonians.
Oh, okay.
The the Highlander figures from the Macbeth campaign.
Right.
Yeah, and it's like the Macbeth campaign was is a classic, and it had its characters. You had this little flyer with a release of all the figures, all the personalities for the Macbeth scenario, blah blah blah. But then when it came to the part where they had these Highlanders fighting and stuff, they only released four Highlander figures. And of those four Highlander figures, they didn't even include the leaders of the Highlander groups in the scenario. They
Yeah.
just didn't exist. And this client came to me and said, "Hey, could you make some more Highlanders for this set, including the leaders?" And I was like, "Oh yes," particularly since it was Bob, particularly since the design of the Highlanders was Bob Naismith, um, because he is a Scot, and
Yeah, yeah.
just the really simple, basic figures, very enthusiastic, and all I had to do was just make more, and that was a fun stream. It was very fun.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds like a good time.
Didn't slow me down in the least. What's your color scheme going to be for the space dwarfs?
What's that?
What your space dwarves? What are you going to do with them? Do you know
So, uh
in
I
terms of game?
I'm using them as kind of like a group of bounty hunters for Necromunda.
Uh-huh.
So,
So
I what's that?
they're going to be a little varied.
Yeah, exactly. I want them to have kind of their own kind of aesthetics. Like, definitely gonna do some yellow on the hard hat.
Yeah, emphasize that it's like straight out of the construction zone.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, my friend, I did the Necromunda squats that they just came out with. For my
Hmm.
friend, I went with yellow for them too because they just had that kind of that OSHA compliant kind of look.
Indeed.
Actually, that's what I'm getting at right now. Is I was looking at that hard hat and I was like, I want to paint that next.
Yeah, that was the theme I was going for. It's like a sub theme. The core theme, of course, is old hammer space dwarves. But then I kind of for myself I required a sub theme that was going to be containing my set. and I decided that it was going to be industrial. It was going to be like these space dwarves. They've got trucks or something with a
Right.
space equivalent, and they need to load the trucks with a loader. And what kind of weapons would they have on hand if their jobs are all industrial jobs?
Yeah, no, that's one thing I really liked about them is, that it's very easy to find. Like I found a cool STL file of a squat with a las gun. I've converted a bunch of
Sure.
with bolters and various things, but like having a variety of kind of industrial tools was a fun kind of variety uh, of
Or
stuff.
let's say industrial-esque.
Yeah,
Some of them are
exactly.
clearly, but I mean that's the thing about the old Hammer Five is that the projects are kind of thrown at the sculptors almost, and they just sort of made stuff up for each individual figure. Um, Things didn't become terribly samey until they started tapping into their plastic boxes. I mean,
Right.
once once they started releasing boxes of plastic miniatures, which was their goal in the first place, was to create an excuse to get some plastics out there. By the nature of the material, they were going to look the same.
Of
So a
course.
theme of repetition hold. But the original release for Rogue Trader, it's all about the individual figures, baby. No two are alike.
Yep.
And a lot of the weapons are just kind of nonsensical. It's like I just put some sort of gun in his hand, whatever.
I really like the Chaos Space Marine line from that era because it's so out there. It's like what am I even looking at with half of the stuff?
I mean, it was special enough that Naismith created the bolter, and they made copies of the bolters. So you can see amongst the figures, these bolter bits were slapped in there.
Yeah.
They're obviously, copies. They're repeated. But other things, even the bolt guns on their hips were usually just hand sculpted and looked kind of different.
Yep.
It's a little, you know, making it look kind of ragtag, not just in terms of the characters, but in terms of the sculptors. Wait a minute, what's in his hand? I look at my art. Check your reference, student.
uh, oh right.
See it. You can't. It's,
I need a metallic. I'm like I got everything out except for my metallics. There we go. I always get nervous with Citadel paints that I'm going to open it and it's going to be dried to heck.
will it explode on me?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. No, this one, in fact, I've had issues with, so I put a bunch of flow improver into it, and now it's a little bit too diluted, but I can manage.
I wish I was a better painter myself so I could you know, comment constructively on what I would do. Uh, I have my skills, so a little bit of painting skills, but my color ideas are really poor. My thoughts on color never really just don't work. I'm very much a form thinker. I think about things in terms of volumes and shadows,
Right, right.
colors. I'm just being modest about it. Somebody else might think that my color choices are okay, but I've always seen better.
For me, like,
But lately,
oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that lately I've been thinking about dropping my acrylic collection and trying to go for oils and enamels like the old days.
Right.
I'm going to be the old hammer about my approach. I might as well just tuck right in on what they were doing back in 1983, 84. That's And so I started collecting some paints. I asked the old painters, "Hey, what did you use?" and buy that.
Right.
And, but and I haven't painted anything in like quite a little while now, so that change still hasn't happened.
Well, yeah, it's tough. It's like
So,
it would be a good time to reset, but it is also like it's like another barrier to getting started on painting when you have to learn a whole new style.
exactly. Actually, I can do some show and tell. Slowing
Uh huh.
myself down now. I'm gonna put in the cooker, and I'm gonna come back with a small show and tell.
Very cool.
Just a
Yeah, I can even like switch you to full screen.
it's not the kind of show and tell that's going to like complement or compete with what you're doing there in terms of painting. It's very silly, actually. Um, so it was a few years ago that I decided that, well, actually, it was a few years ago I realized somebody informed me that the original paint that I was using back in the 80s still exists. The
Oh,
old pots.
yeah.
Oh, you know about this.
Is it
Some people don't, and it's like what are they called? It's been a while since I pulled them together.
coat to
It was
arms?
from Coat d'Arms. Thank you. Yes, Coat d'Arms. Coat d'Arms is the name of the line from this. It's the same line of paint from the company that formulated and put the paint out. It's just that Games Workshop stopped buying from them and started
Right.
buying their paint from a different pots. But the original pots and the original formulas, for the most part, are still at Coat d'Arms. So I just bought a whole bunch of Coat d'Arms pots, and this is going to be really crazy. I mean, crazy as in, what the heck? Why'd you do, whatever did you do? I made my own labels and just rewrote all of them.
That's so cool. That's a great
And if it's a
idea.
color that you have a match in the original Citadel line, I just created my own names.
That's awesome.
So I've got like there's one that I call Pygmy because of the awful racist connotations of like, having a flesh color that's
Right.
not Caucasian. But of course, the classics are here. I got my elf flesh, and they're all brand new paints from Coat d'Arms. They're not the actual Citadel colors, but might as well just name them then.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the pots, there's a lot of people out there who still have these original pots from the
Oh,
80s,
I know. I'm
and they
always
still.
surprised.
It's something about the plastic of the lids and everything that keeps them fresh for the most part. So I've got an entire art bin full of these things.
That's fantastic.
But again, I haven't been using them in a while.
No, but that's ideal for working on that kind of old hammer stuff.
Exactly.
I do this guy as denim.
Wearing denim?
Yeah, denim with the yellow hard hat.
That makes a lot of sense. In fact, I think denim is what I was imagining when I was sculpting it.
Denim jacket. Oh, darn it. See, the one problem with uh I used a lot of contrast paints for putting down initial colors. And the one problem with them is that
Mm.
every once in a while you'll bump into something else that you painted and it just drags all that color right in and they just start mixing. It's like, "Oh no, 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 I don't want you to be brown." Okay. Well, that's a start. It needs to go bluer, but can come back with washes later to deepen that a little bit. Let's see. This guy. Get some leather. I really like the contrast Citadel leather or Citadel contrast leather paint that they have. It has a very kind of rustic kind of feel. I just really I don't
I
know.
think I've heard of coffee paints. It's a whole line within a line, right?
Yeah, yeah, and they're
Yeah.
basically just glazes that they kind of they came up with a catchy marketing term for.
Mm.
But they work really nicely with that kind of dry brushing kind of zenithal highlighting with the airbrush, anything like that, because they're semi transparent. They also really work nicely to do like a colored metal. Like if you want to do like a cherry red, if you do a gold undercoat and then contrast over it, it's just a red contrast. It's just like instant, like cherry red kind of hot rod color.
I haven't been paying attention lately because, as I just showed you, I've been playing around with my coat de arms as my old hammer paints for so
Yeah,
long
yeah.
now. Has Citadel been releasing a lot of paints with formulations that are like targeted for airbrushers?
So they actually did. They did an airbrush line for a while, and they
Mhm.
just axed it, I think, or they axed half of it. Um,
It's a must know.
but the contrast paints, a lot of airbrush people have kind of started using because they're very thin, so you don't have to really
Mhm.
do much to get them to go through the airbrush. And they put on a really nice coverage, even though it's you kind of lose some of the like part of the whole pitch was that you could put it on in one coat and it's self shading basically. Uh,
Mhm.
and it's okay for that, but I think it works much better to view it as a glaze. So it's a semi-transparent paint that you can put over a value sketch very easily. If you want to if you want to go that route, or if you want to just paint the whole thing white, it's a bit like some people would do washes over white as like the base of their painting, and it's like that but
Yeah.
with more dense pigmentation.
So it's got a lot of different applications.
Yeah, I think it's really nifty. It's definitely made it into my workflow sorry, I'm sick at the moment. It's made it into my workflow in a few different ways. I really like it for things like cloth, you know because because it's uh designed to kind of pull into cracks. You get the kind of folds and the ripples to kind of really pop when you put the contrast over it.
Nice.
But it's kind of one of those things where it's like it was a big change for me because it meant that suddenly I didn't need to like hand mix my glazes anymore, but it wasn't
Mhm.
actually like a game changer in terms of like the technique. It just made my life easier. But that was enough. Like I'll gladly buy a properly made glazing paint. I'll gladly pay the GW price so that I don't have to deal with mixing it to make sure that it uh, is the right consistency every time. Because that was the liability with mixing my own glazes. Like, all right, how close am I to last time? Am I gonna like put this on and it's not gonna look right?
Good
Uh,
know the GW products that people can love.
yeah,
As an old hammer developer and just I collect nothing but for the most part. Yeah, I get a lot of comments from people in the middle of things where they think that I'm going to be like down on Games Workshop's current stuff, and yeah, I mean it's not for me, but I really, I mean let's take a long view. The thing is that what I do in Oldhammer, these space dwarves and everything else, it's like, yeah, it's derivative of the early 80s. I mean, the late 80s. It's derivative of old stuff, but none of this would work if GW hadn't become a corporation
right.
and hadn't become so successful in the past decades. This all happens within the shadow of a greater framework. So it is the Games Workshop hobby. It's just, a small, extension of that community.
Yeah,
You just have to be realistic and understand that their success is what preserves Oldhammer, whether they meant it to or not.
yeah, it's true. No, it's very true. Like, I was a kid in the '80s. I was like an infant or whatever, or a toddler. And my stepdad had the original Realms of Chaos books. Now I had
Ooh.
also been exposed to like Space Hulk, the video game, and I had Battle Masters as a kid, so I had like a few different like moments to prime me for Warhammer. And my stepdad's friend worked at the GW US headquarters because that used to be here in Baltimore. And so we would go over to his house, and I would get to see. He was one of the he was one of the heavy metal painters at the time, and
Oh.
he had case after case of stuff. He also introduced me to Gundam and anime and all kinds of other stuff because that's just how it is when you just when you
Totally
discover
grew up with it.
a new nerdy friend. Yeah, so
Yeah.
uh, I kind of was captivated by the models in his cases and like the detail that he painted with. And so my stepdad gave me the Realms of Chaos books, and like I started playing without models, like just with scraps of paper, and my friends and I would just come up with with our Chaos warbands, and we kind of pieced together the Warhammer Fantasy rules from the like quick reference guide in the books because we didn't have the manual. We just had the two Realms of Chaos books, but they had all the charts for all the to hit and to wound and all that stuff printed on the inside of the book. So,
Okay.
so then I like years later, uh, I was like hanging out with my friend. I was a senior in college, and he was like, "Yeah, I got these things out of my parents' attic, and it's like a box of War Master models and Space Marines." And I was like, "Oh, I used to play this stuff like as a kid. I had even like I'd done I got Mordheim when it came out, stuff like that." And he was like, "Oh, well, you should check it out. Like, you could go to the Games Workshop store and get a model, get an army or whatever." And I literally like went and bought. I was waiting tables at the time. I had a really good night, and I went and there was a Games Workshop. It was like a battle bunker that used to be their old headquarters here, and I went and bought like a whole Chaos Space Marine army all at once, and painted it up. And I got the rule book, and I was like, "What is this? This is nothing like the game that I had been playing and interested in the 90s, which was the 80s version of the game." So it had been 20
Yeah.
years of development, and I had no idea. It was so different. It was initially off-putting. But like then I got into the game, and I was enjoying myself a lot, and I kind of got back. Sort of went backwards into Old Hammer, um, because I went to Old Hammer in the New World, which was an event in I want to say 2016, maybe it was 2015. That was
Mhm.
at once again that same battle bunker. Once it had closed, got reopened as another game store by a bunch of ex GW employees, and was a game store briefly. And so I went there, and there were all these people playing Old Hammer stuff who had come in from like other states and stuff like that. And it was so cool
Mhm.
that I was instantly inspired to start kind of collecting Old Hammer stuff. And I even tracked
This
down. Oh, go ahead.
this is not for anybody who's watching really, but I'm from Baltimore myself.
Oh,
Where
nice.
where was this new location at? I
So this
wasn't
was
in town.
it was in Glen Burnie. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. There's too many game stores in the area, and it didn't make it. But it was called Drop Zone Games.
Oh,
But it
was
was
it the Glen Burnie where the old factory was?
yep.
Oh, oh, okay.
They had
Yeah, it's kind of
even
an out of the way. So.
they had a Tau Manta that was like left over from when the battle bunker was there. That was just like part of the store collection. Which I don't know how a Manta like gets included in a lease, but all right.
They just left it. Nobody wanted to take it with them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I
Nobody
used
wanted
to.
to deal with it. Tau Manta's a lot
Yeah,
of
I
responsibility.
recall as I recall, they moved their store. They rearranged the interior before they up sticks and left that place. They rearranged the interior, and where the store was in during those years when you went, used to be where the casting facility was located and the molds.
Oh
They kind
yeah.
of moved the rooms, and that's where I used to work.
Oh, that's funny.
So right where you were probably playing is where I was like originally spin casting the stuff, the product back when I was working there back when Mordheim came.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Very late in the game.
Yeah, it's funny. You might have met. I don't know his last name, unfortunately. My stepdad's friend Eric was a painter there, but I don't know how late
So
he worked there.
a lot of individuals.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
Jim Kitchen before I worked there too. I was like, oh, Jim. Oh,
Yeah, I definitely I miss them having the HQ here because then they also did like events in Baltimore as a result.
mm-hmm. Games days and everything.
Yep. But it's been a
Yep.
long time since they've organized anything in this area. Everything now is like they've been doing everything based around their HQ in Texas.
Oh, oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, they did like a
And
series of events the last year. They were kind of like low key. I'm not not disparaging them or whatever. I don't. I just know that they weren't, it was coming out of COVID and everything, so they were not particularly large events, in the that sense. Um, but they had been uh, running them in like Florida. I think there might have been one in Louisiana or something, and then in Texas. It's like I'm not willing to like go that far out personally.
surprising, Baltimore team, a lot of gamers in it.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, we have a ton of game stores. I'm kind of spoiled for choice on that front.
It was a little bit dry back in the early aughts for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. I think it was a after effect of the oncoming of the trading game scene. First with Wizards of the Coast, what do you call it? Uh, Magic the Gathering, of course, and that went on for a while. But then when Pokemon and stuff started coming out, it
Right.
really just gaming scene in such a way that I think it adversely affected the game stores that were prevalent in the area beforehand.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's hard to compete, and of course now, that's the lifeblood of half of those game stores is
yeah,
collectible
the
card
game stores have
games.
adapted, and now they have a whole bunch of tables ready for trading game card trading game tournaments and stuff.
Oh yeah, I
It's really
always
good
I always
fun.
tell people, if you open a game store, this day and age, what you're doing is opening a store that sells trading cards that has enough room for whatever other product stock that you
Yeah,
happen to be able to get, because like that's where your floor space versus profit margin, like it's all those decks of cards. Of course, GW seems to be trying to make itself just as crucial with the price increases. They're like, yeah, all right, it's going to be $100 for a tank before
I mean,
long.
and from an old hammer perspective, that feels really, really obscene. But from the long view, I mean, cynically speaking, you got to think of it this way: a lot of businesses, a lot of products, if you price it really, really high, people are going to start treating it differently. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
regard it differently. Price tag itself connotates a certain sense of a value in the acquisition, and that can become part of your marketing strategy.
Oh
It's
yeah.
it's cynical to it, but that's the way it can work.
Oh, I like I've talked about this to my wife a lot because we both were in the car one time where we heard an NPR story about this company that was selling like fitness rollers. There's like things that you roll against your muscles to like help relieve soreness or whatever, and
Right?
they weren't selling, and like they had tried to kind of get in low on the price to like compete with their competitors, and it just wasn't moving.
Hmm.
And they had tried everything, and then like randomly the guy decided to up the price from like $40 to $70, and because it was a good product that that was filling that, like, it was doing a good job of what it was doing, it suddenly took off at the almost 100% price increase, and they became like a major company on the back of like charging more for something than like the going rate or whatever.
Case in point.
And it just goes to show that the marketplace is not always rational, the way people think. Like, it's not like a 1-to-1 equation where it's like people optimize, they look for the best price. Like, you got to think about what you're getting. Like, it's a lot more than just especially when it's something like this where it's essentially art. It's small, like interactive art, but it's still down to aesthetics. It's down to personal taste, and like people
Yeah.
can not like something, but that doesn't make it bad necessarily. And then that kind of people will assume that their taste is sort of universal, and then they wind up getting surprised by stuff.
Yeah. There's that old adage, the price that the market will bear
Yep.
is a very true, and it goes both ways. Whatever price the market will bear.
Yeah, I always like to
I
say, like,
also,
don't worry too much if a GW product is overpriced. Like, if it doesn't sell, you'll see it in a bundle box at a discount later.
as a developer, I often wrestle with pricing my products. And there's two different aspects that I wrestle with, maybe three. The first, of course, is the cost of my production and the cost of my overhead. Because, well, just me in this room creating product. So that already drives my price up because I can't produce to scale like a large manufacturer can.
Right.
I can't ship a case from China of little plastic toys and then sell them for like $2 each and see a profit from that because I can't do scale production. All I have are little bins, so my price goes up because of that very factor. But the other thing, of course, the market will, the price that the market will bear. Um, well, the thing that I'm wrestling with, what really drives me nuts, is that the truth of the matter is that metal casting back in the 80s was the cheap option back then. Plastics was the hard thing to get into.
Yeah.
What the plastics had a really expensive front end because the tooling was so high tech at that time. And so plastics was something only big companies would entertain because the equipment was so, I mean, the dyes alone were thousands of dollars. They still are, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah.
But my point is that metals were really cheap to produce in every sense. Cheap to make the molds, cheap to make the manufacture the goods, cheap to ship the goods at that time.
Right.
Now the economy has changed. Metal's more expensive and plastics are king. And so, I mean, right now, of these two projects I have on my table, I have one right here that's going to be in line with, some current stuff that's done in plastics online. I mean, in the market, like what do you call them, bones from
Right.
wafer.
Right.
So I have these on the table as style guides and scale guides because they're making this product to go kind of tandem with that. They're
Right.
not going to be copies of the figures naturally, but I have to have them fit among them.
Sure.
So I have them on the table, and these are like what, 250 each, to sell, and they're suitable.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny. It's like if you're casting in metal today in this time, not old hammer, mind you, but if you're like somebody like Dark Sword,
Hmm.
you're casting metal to acquire the most infinitesimal, most beautiful, exquisite detailing. You're doing some really detailed, beautiful stuff, and that's the optimum because that's what the market demands now in this day and age. You
Right.
have the materials, you get that detail in there, boom, and you charge for it too. Whereas this stuff, it's kind of lumpy.
Yeah.
This plastic goop. I'm speaking derogatorily, speaking from as an old school collector. These things have just like this goopy detail on them. It's just like I can barely read this face. The shield design is nice, probably made in a computer. Whoop-de-doo. I'm like, it's not that great. But then again, neither was Oldhammer.
Right.
So the detail quality level of the very figures you're painting right now, I deliberately dumbed it down because it was kind of back then. Now it's come back around and people are producing in mass quantities plastic figures with kind of poor detailing because that's what the material yields.
Right.
Um, I'm reimagining how I would go about manufacturing things in resins and plastics now, because my mind is coming around to the idea that it's a new generation, and what was, the grungy, sloppy stuff of necessity from the '80s in Oldhammer, and what these dwarves are made in the style of is now the plastics that companies like Reaper are generating, or resins, whatever, is their
Yeah,
thing at
yeah.
this stage with the chemistry that they're using. Um, yeah, I'm getting a new perspective on what the value of these things are. I mean, I've got a whole bunch of metal that I can like put onto a table to run a game with, but now I'm starting to collect a little bit of this plastic stuff that I can just jumble in my hands like marbles. It's just toys. They're
Yeah.
toys.
Yeah, they
Toys
are.
all over again.
Oh, I literally I use Reaper Bones models as my like models that I give to my kids because they're almost indestructible. Uh
Exactly.
but my kids love them and they're perfect for playing D&D with, small children because they can kind of, they can handle them and you're not worried about, them breaking stuff. Like I put out my GW plastic scenery or my resin 3D prints, and I'm always just like waiting for the crash.
Yeah.
But with
That's the
the
thing.
yeah, the single pose plastics, they're lovely.
Some people don't know. I did a lot of work for Dwarven Forge
Uh
because I don't put my name on it. Not it's, by volume, I guess what I've done for Dwarven Forge is minuscule now. I mean, the team has done so much more without me involved in the studio. But several years ago, Stefan Picorni called me over to Brooklyn to just be in the studio and help develop some stuff. And for a few years there, I was coming annually almost to Brooklyn to be in the studio for several weeks
uh
and generate the product for the next upcoming Kickstarter. So I got really into Dwarven Forge's development, their latest Kickstarter material. The fun thing about Dwarven Forge, I mean, earlier on they started with like very fragile plaster casting like stuff, tough stuff, but it would break.
right.
And then Stefan and the rest of the Dwarven Forge team started creating dwarvenite, what they call dwarvenite. Functionally, it's a kind of a vulcanized rubber product, just like McFarlane toys and so
Oh
forth,
yeah,
generated in
yeah.
China. So here you have a whole lot of different dungeon building scenery that's made of the most indestructible stuff. And so I'm gonna put this in the cooker real quick. No, wait a minute. I'm gonna mix some more green stuff. That's what I'm doing. So I said to them a few years ago, look, guys, this stuff is great for kids. Why don't you start like advertising them for children? Because kids as young as like, 6 and 7 can get excited about Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or just playing like they can play Dungeons and Dragons. And so for a few years there, before I left San Francisco, mind you, I was running a program, uh, kind of sponsored by Dwarven Forge, where I was inviting kids at the KublaCon convention in San Francisco to come and play with the Dwarven Forge products. I got
Nice.
like cases and cases of this Dwarven Forge material and plastic figures too, and just set up the tables. No, no, I didn't set up the tables. I brought in the bins. I said, okay, kids, reach into those bins and grab what you want and start playing. It had a semi structure for it, but I had kids as young as, 6 and as old as like 12, 13, and they would just collaborate spontaneously on the most outrageous scenarios.
Oh
It's like,
yeah.
okay, you guys do your dungeons, and then we're gonna play in the dungeon that you built, and it was really wonderful.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Very
My kids
kids.
are my daughter's about to turn 6 and my son is 8, and I put out stuff for them to play with all the time, and I'm always like kind of listening in because they don't know the backstory of most of the models that I'm putting out, so it's
Of
just
course.
kind of their call what they're playing with, and they come up with the funniest stories. Like, what my one daughter is like always trying to kind of steer things towards uh a conflict. Whereas my son is always trying to like set up a plot. She's like, no, let's fight, and he's like, no, 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 I want there to be like a reason for them to fight.
Yep. It's really tough. I'm kind of sad that I couldn't continue that. It was one of the things that I lost when I had to move out of San Francisco.
Yeah, it's
That was
tough.
because I was going to, although Dwarven Forge was supposed to like compensate me for my work there with some extra Dwarven Forge product of my own. Hey, Jay, I'm still waiting. What box? Cool. I love those guys. They're family.
That's what's nice about the sort of like smaller market is like it's all kind of everybody gets to know each other,
Yeah.
and most of them are cool because it's really hard to survive as an independent small business if you're not like able to interact with other people.
Indeed.
There's that like
Although
one.
on the other hand,
What's that?
socializing is socializing isn't really our greatest forte either. Most of us are just in our rooms half of the year.
You have a point there. Yes. Not everyone can handle the con level of social interaction.
Quite a while. That was my only socialization was when I got to get to a convention, and even then, it was about selling my service.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I was running the Necromunda event at Nova a few weeks ago, and there was very little like me time in any of that because it was just like, all
Yeah.
right, I'm bouncing from like fire to fire to fire. My only personal time was I went to do the kill team laser tag, which was a really whoever at GW had that idea was very clever. Like it, you there was very little that could get me to like sign up for uh something like that like at a convention, but like doing like bolters and orc shooters as like your laser tag guns was it was too fun. I couldn't not do it.
Yep, it does sound like a kick.
My only complaint was that it was like a small area, but that's that's not anybody's fault. The con was already like straining the limits of the space that we were in.
That's a pity.
Well, they're moving to a new location next year.
For the convention.
Yep,
Oh,
it'll be at the I think at the Hilton in DC where they hold the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
oh, that should have a
Uh,
lot of space, right?
it's like it's more space in that one hotel than in both hotels that we were using in Arlington put together.
Nice.
Yeah, so that I'm very much looking forward to. I'm really hoping that I can kind of get some more space because the Necromunda tables were like 8 or 12 boards on 8 tables, which is a tight fit.
Yeah.
I would much rather have every table kind of have its own space so people don't feel cramped. But you do what you got to do. I wanted to expand the number of tables at the event from 8 to 12, so I was glad I was able to do that. And that's the important thing.
I expect a lot of people are going to be viewing this after you put it up. I
Yeah,
don't know if
yeah.
anybody talking. Except maybe Ethereal Monkey might still be here.
I kind of doubt it, but it's hard to stay like that's the one thing I've noticed with live streams. It's like it's hard to stay on for the whole time they run, so you wind up kind of ducking out.
Oh no, you can't hold it against somebody if they can only step by for a little while.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a big
Part of it
commitment
is
to.
just making sure that you know when you're going to be online.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for guesting on here. It definitely made it more interesting to kind of have someone to talk
Yeah, same here. It's like
to.
I'm just here, catch up on my work, and I'm like, oh, somebody to talk to while I'm working.
Yeah, yeah.
I was hoping I didn't expect it, but I was half hoping maybe there'd be a small Oldhammer crowd that I could like talk with. Because the truth is that I need to pick people's brains and make sure that I've got things. There's I got all kinds of projects. When I say that I've got Oldhammer project, I've got all kinds of like what I call rigs. These corks
Right.
with green. The wires are up, their poses are struck. Sometimes an anatomy is on. Sometimes it's just a face on a skeleton body
Uh
and it's
huh.
not built yet. And it's like all kinds of projects, things being pulled together, different stages. Some are just blobs, some are almost finished, but not quite. And I'm like, I got all kinds of old hammer things. I've got like Nick Bibby trolls. I've got you know goblins and orcs that are like in the style well, in the style of what is it? Nick Bride,
Yeah.
Nick art, and just that's not necessarily Oldhammer, of course. Other stuff like I'm trying to develop a whole bunch of undead. I've got some zombies coming up.
Ooh. I'll
Uh,
definitely have to pick up some
yeah,
zombies.
necromancers and witch and
I was just about to say like the thing that comes to mind top of my brain is like spellcasters like a witch or a wizard. That's so funny.
got it coming up. I've actually got Ken and James generating some artwork for it right now. It's really fun stuff.
Nice.
The thing is that I'm never quite sure what to do next, and I'm always conflicted about what people might buy next. And like I said, I've got these space dwarves on their skyboards in development, mostly because I got so many people PMing me for them. I'm not satisfied with them right now. I hope to be. I hope they're good. I was hoping that maybe somebody would like see us talking and like chime in and say, it'd be really cool.
Yep.
I'd be like, that idea. I now know what I'm gonna do for December.
uh,
That's the thing about Old Hammer Project is creating the things that we wish had been made,
right.
but weren't
Right.
from the Old
Absolutely.
Hammer series. Like the skelly bobs that I made, if you look closely, they don't have any armor or crazy stuff on them. They're just naked, skeletons. Um, just like the original plastics,
Uh huh.
but they're not plastic. They are metal. So they fit in the style of the original skeletons, but none of the original skeletons were just skeletons.
Right.
So that's a
Right.
small tiny created for myself. There we go. Just raw skeletons.
Um. one
Anyway,
one thing that comes to mind that oh wait, what was I gonna say? Hold on. It was like Beastmen, but like more varieties of Beastmen, because like the the like Beastmen wound up all kind of being goat guys, but like back in the day
mhm.
there was much more of a variety. They were much more chaotic.
Oh, it was crazy. And I found the source of that too. That is pure, well, I don't know if it's pure, but it was majorly influenced by Brian Ansel.
Oh yeah.
Once you get to know Brian's creative process, you figure out that, oh, chaos is Brian's baby, if not his influence.
Right.
I remember that same year, one of the years that I went to Boyle to the War Games Foundry. It was like catching up, seeing with what um Kev Adams was generating for him that year in
Uh
terms of goblins, and Brian was like telling him just stretch their necks out really really tall. He had this big thing for like stretchy necks.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like these guys big long necks, and it's like, oh, he wants the crazy mutant stuff. Yeah, that's definitely a project I've had in my mind, but I haven't got any wire ups for it yet because it's fertile. It's really fun. I can't make a choice. I don't know what to do. I need to
Yeah.
like did drugs. I'd take a hit real fast before trying to come up with what I'm going to do there because that's
No,
what it
right,
looks like when you look at
exactly. Like you got to really
it
like
looks
put
like
yourself in a
in a
different
it's
mindset.
it's gotta be crazy. Of course, that's the magic of the old Hammer Chaos line back then. Of course, is that it was mad.
Right.
Nobody else was doing quite as crazy as those guys were in that year.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't I don't think they were doing drugs so much as just like drinking lots of beer at the tavern down the road in Nottingham or something. But I I kind of look at the team um as a fan looking in. I'm sure they have a completely different perspective of their experience in the, but I look at them as like the 1970s, early 80s crew of Saturday Night Live.
Right,
It's just
right.
like magic happened. Anybody who was working at that studio was like just stoned out of their gourd and just creating all kinds of crazy products. And people were tuning in because they couldn't believe how mad and crazy they were.
Right.
And the same thing with like I know I'm starting to go on a tangent here, but Monty Python crew,
Right, yeah.
same thing. It's this confluence of creative people that just got together in time and space and just created freaking magic.
Yep.
And everybody wanted to follow it.
And it can't last
And
forever. That's the funny thing about that kind
yeah,
of magic.
that's the whole thing about Old Hammer. It didn't last forever. It couldn't last forever. So what Old Hammer is, what you're painting, what I'm sculpting, this is just us, revisiting that magic and trying to get that, put it in that bottle.
Yeah.
What was that again? What do you love about it? What did it smell like? Yeah, the smell.
For me, it's the weight. There's just something unmatchable about the weight of a metal model. Like, yeah, it's hard to
One of
even
the things
like put it into words. It's just like I can't explain it. It may not be rational, but it is absolutely like that's the feeling of holding a model to me.
one of the things about my collection of paints that I was talking about,
Yeah.
the smell of them, man. Just the smell. It's nuts. I know, it's crazy.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about though. Like it's different chemistry. So like it has
Mm.
it's a sense memory. Those are powerful.
Olfactory memories. They make a big difference. And that's the thing. That's where I started off with. There's nothing quite like the feeling of having a fistful of lead figures in your hand.
Yeah, I really need to do a coat to arms order just to get some of the inks because that was that was
Actually,
Yeah.
No, not quite. I said I was being shorthand about it, but the truth of the matter is that some of what Cote d'Arms has there is not the same formulations, and the inks are among them.
Ah,
If you
damn.
want to do inks, this is here. I'll educate you. I don't know as half as much as you about paint, but I can tell you this much. In this bin that I keep pulling up, it has those bottles that I put together. Among
Yeah.
them are the most of them don't have the labels on it anymore. Rotring Artist Color.
Oh, okay.
These acrylic inks and and these are acrylics, very thin, high pigment colors. These are the colors that they used back in the 80s.
Okay.
Um, and if it wasn't this, they used Winsor Newton.
Oh, okay.
And I've got some. And so when it came to my like make believe Citadel inks, I just bought some Winsor Newton colors and put them in the bottles. They're
Nice.
in here somewhere.
Yeah, I've used Windsor Newtons before, and I mostly use like Dollar Rowney just because they have them at the craft shop I go to.
What was it called? Last one?
Dollar Rowney. It's
I've never heard of it.
these guys. It is. Oh, I guess you probably can't. Which camera are you on?
Not yet. I will eventually.
Yeah, you're looking at the
Play.
stream, so it'll be about another minute or so.
Right now, I'm watching myself looking confused. I look like such a dork with that lamp on my head.
Well, it's hard to avoid looking like a dork when you have a lamp on your head.
I gotta see these details though, man. I can't mess around.
Oh, absolutely not. My father-in-law just got diagnosed with glaucoma. I'm like, oh, like
Oh no.
I always forget about that aspect of aging where like parts of your body just start to go wrong. I'm like, oh God, like I really want my
Yeah,
like fine motor skills and my eyesight to remain. I've really committed to
yeah,
this hobby.
yeah. I'm having, because I'm older than I seem. Um, Starting to get a little gray hairs on the sides now.
Right.
But worse yet, starting to get some body parts not doing what they're supposed to be doing anymore. And it's like the stand-up comic said, back when you're in your 20s and you go to a doctor and say, got this pain in my side right here. And they say, oh, we'll take care of that right away. Here, take this.
Yeah.
But then, you're in your 50s and you go to a doctor and you say, I got this pain in my side right here. And the doctor just crosses their arms and goes, yep,
Yep. That's your life now.
yep.
You might want to
So
buy
I'm
a
looking forward,
inversion table or something.
I'm looking forward to going to my doctor and asking him if they can help me with the fact that my left ear has suddenly stopped working.
Yeah.
Uh, that's concerning, but I'm really really anticipating that I'm gonna get a yeah. Uh,
Well, depending on what kind of hearing loss it is, they could definitely do hearing aids.
yeah, I suppose, except this is getting kind of TMI about it, but it's in the ear that I have continual non-stop tinnitus.
Oh yeah.
So you hear something out of it, it's just not sounds from outside the world. It's a buzzing sound in my left ear,
Yeah, yeah.
and there's nothing that a hearing aid can do about that.
Right,
I just
absolutely.
I just hope it's like I don't know, an inner ear infection that will go away.
Yeah, here's
We'll
hoping.
see. It's not stopping me
But
from
yeah,
sculpting.
tinnitus is tough.
Because it doesn't go away and nobody can cure it.
Yeah. Uh it's like my wife's a speech therapist. And so
Oh yeah?
when she was in school, she shared a lot with me cuz we were both in grad school at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
she was, talking to me about this stuff and she's like, oh, like we should be much more careful about concerts and stuff. I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, if you damage your hearing, like you could get tinnitus that's that's permanent, and there's nothing they could do about it. I was like, wait, what? She's like, yeah, it's like and like it happens from all kinds of stuff. But like one of the things that you can
Mhm.
do is protect your hearing by having lower volume on headphones and not wearing earplugs at really loud concerts and stuff. And I had always kind of I'd always been like, earphones at a concert, what are you talking about? But like she got me on board because I like to be able to hear.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know how I damaged my ears. I was a soldier for a bit and an
Ah,
artillerist.
yep. Oh, that'll
I
do it.
didn't wear my, I didn't wear my earplugs at the times that I was supposed to. I did most of the time, but you have to do it all the time.
Yep. Oh yeah, and then that's the folly of youth, right? Is like not realizing that something that you do something you do when you're young can like echo somewhat, maybe sometimes less literally, maybe in this case more literally into the future.
Yeah. The serious connotations of the damage didn't really, the onset didn't happen until decades after the damage had occurred. It just
Exactly.
like gets older.
And you're like, "Oh no, old me. If only you had known." Oh my. This has been a lot of fun. I don't know if I would have gotten these models painted today if it wasn't for being on stream. I've been kind of sick, and I have a feeling that if I hadn't scheduled this, I would have like laid down on my couch and taken a nap when I got home.
That's part of the reason why I'm looking forward to possibly resuming my streaming with my own products,
Yeah,
because the act of like being on camera, it'll hold my restless ass down long enough to get something done here.
yeah, exactly.
Man,
Right.
I've been self-employed for years now, and I've generated a good deal of product. That said, my work ethic is really, really, scraping bottom. It's not that great. I'm a very restless person. I have ADHD. I'm always jumping around. To just engage while I'm working.
Oh,
The trick, of course, is
my
pay attention
camera.
to the work. Um,
My camera finally died. I forgot to get the AC adapter for it, so now it's back to having the
oh,
utility
whoops.
thing.
Oh no. Does that mean the end of the stream? Because I can't
No,
watch
I
it?
have another camera right here. The other
Oh,
camera
okay.
I was using. I just need to get this one off the mount and
That's
swap the
what
other
that
one.
utility is.
But this was kind of my backup plan was to have this other camera on hand. Because I knew this was going to be an issue.
I've harnessed the technique of using my headlamp as a heat lamp to fast cure when I'm using a super glue to hold points together. That's
Okay.
that's that's like the magic trick of being a miniature sculptor. Nobody makes tools for you for this line of work, buddy. You gotta just pull it together yourself. You have to get your own dental tools and mount them on your own sticks, or
Right, right,
grab the
exactly.
Max 5 while you're in England or something. It's tweezers. Just pull it together, man. You're on your own. Find what epoxies you want to work with. Strap a medical a doctor's like examine light to your reading glasses.
Ugh, darn it.
Make it up as you go along. All right, I can get this weapon on too.
All right. So it's not ideal because of the lighting, but it's better than
No?
nothing.
Oh,
Maybe
it
if
disconnected.
I.
Oh, I'm looking at it late though. I'm watching the stream from earlier. I also seem to have a thingy over my face. Is my audio off?
There we go. I was trying to find a thing that would allow me to mount the light that I have because the camera that I was using has a shoe mount, but this one does not. So because it's just a webcam. So I'm like, oh, all right, we're gonna be painting in a little bit of less than optimal lighting conditions uh, for a few more minutes. It won't last that much longer because it's 1:45. So I'm gonna wrap at 2.
All right. Yeah, I'm not too, I'm not, I don't know if I'm satisfied with my basic Logic webcam that I have aimed down on my desk. I have three cameras here. I have the micro cam I was showing you earlier. I have this one I'm talking to, and I also have another one above here,
Right.
um, down on my table. Of course, that's an entire, 1080p kind of image, but it's a little bit blurry. The focus is about mid-range. I'm not sure if it's sufficient to show my miniature sculpting on my desktop.
Yeah. Yeah.
What larger will be done. Very small details.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's the drawback to trying to stream miniature sculpting. Tiny stuff.
It's
Not
true.
terribly fun to watch people sculpt miniatures. It's fun to see it when it's finished. It's not so much fun to try to watch them like make it.
Maybe if I there we go. That'll do. Well, I'm certainly happy with the progress I made today. I got base
You
coats.
got really far too.
Yeah, I got base coats down on
Which figure is that?
all of them.
The one that I'm looking at right now is the figure with the sword and the left hand has the pistol.
Oh yeah.
Where's that from? I think
That is a Necromunda Scavy from like '96.
96 is about the time that I stopped collecting. The design work was starting to like change to I don't know how to say it. It didn't seem as spontaneous as it used to be.
For sure.
That for me, the bobbled magic period largely ended around the same time that Kirby took the company public. And that in itself wasn't a bad thing, but it kind of led to like a change in aesthetic that, kind of left me behind.
Yep, it happens. I uh I really like the Necromunda and Mordheim like aesthetics. Uh but the most of the 90s like GW stuff just kind of isn't, it just doesn't quite work for me. Well, the mid 90s, like there's some Eldar models and such that were released in the early 90s that I think are, that are faction, they're like faction aesthetic defining kind of like sculpts. So like they're lovely, and I'm not, not besmirching them, but I think there was a kind of a rough period, especially where things were very Space Marine focused, um, and
What was their
you know,
that was their money. What do
yeah,
you call it?
cash cow.
Their meal ticket. Yeah, their cash cow.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't blame them for
No,
profit.
exactly. I don't blame them for going that route, but it's too bad because it's like I would have loved to have seen stuff like Gene Stealer cults and Space Dwarves from that era. Uh,
Yeah.
but those lines wind up getting kind of culled, and they just sort of focused on more of the other stuff, the
Some
stuff
good
that was
things came
selling
out of
well.
the studio that I do think are special. Like when the Perrys switched over to the Gothic look for their the revisioning of the Bretonians.
Yes,
That was the important stuff. And then
yes,
Just Goodwin knocked those Sisters of Battle out of the park.
yes,
Whole freaking line in Just Goodwin's hands, amazing. It had the original Sisters of Battle, brilliant sculptures. They still had a little bit of I would call it a paintability problem,
uh
the
huh,
same kind of paintability problem that you get with a lot of Tom Meyer sculptures, where the design of the sculpture is exquisite, but then the painter's like, what do I do with this?
yeah,
You have to put the colors on this aspect of it. It's like the details are just so just glorious on their own, but they're not really realized in terms of color, or
yeah,
rather, they don't offer enough space for the creative, painter to really push something of their own in there. Like when I give you these dwarves, I'm deliberately leaving a lot of space in them, a lot of iffy places where you can create things like, oh, I don't know, denim jeans.
right,
You
right,
can make creatively for yourself. But a lot of Tom Meyer's creativity it's put into work where you don't get that kind of freedom from his output. And the same thing is true with some of Jess's work,
yeah,
to a better for better or worse. And the sisters were among them. The
yeah.
designs are exquisite, but in terms of color choices, you really feel boxed in with them.
It's true.
So I try when I create these figures like these space dwarves, I'm trying really hard to like not do that. To create figures that specifically have that open concept about them so that you can do what you want with them. Just
Yeah.
like in the old days.
I've really been loving it. I can't wait to. I need to sit down and marathon the sisters because they're just sitting on my desk and it's like I feel slightly daunted by them just because
Exactly. They're
it's
beautiful,
yeah, it's tough.
but it's like it's kind of a dare on Jess Goodwin's part. He just like slapped it down. You tried to do that. Go ahead.
Right, exactly.
Or like if we're gonna go to Oldhammer, the equivalent would be when Jess created the Harlequin figures.
Uh
I mean,
huh.
I'm older, so I remember when the Harlequins came out, and damn, if that didn't mess with everybody's heads, because everybody was really excited. They're painting their Space Marine, do. They're painting their Space Works, green flesh, bolt gun metal, blah blah blah. And the Eldar, the paint jobs can be kind of nice, colorful, whoop-de-doo. Then the Harlequins came out, and the painting of the Harlequins on the box cover and everything, and the adverts, and you're like, I'm supposed to do what? Checkers? Polka dots? What? And the figures are clearly meant to be painted that way. That's the thing of it. They're Harlequins. They're these clown figures. It is like that's a lot of work. And I feel like Jess Goodwin did it twice with the Harlequins and then with the sisters. It's like, there you go. I've just knocked your socks off. You try to paint that. Just try.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Really,
sure.
really, really was this challenge that a lot of people tried and failed when it first came out. It's like, you gave it your best effort. Better than me. I don't want to do that to anybody. I don't think I can.
Mm-mm-mm.
Okay, we're ready. Oh, I gotta do these. Jeez. Mm.
I was curious how far I
Oh,
would get.
you got pretty far to me.
Yeah.
You gonna stream your phase?
What's that?
You gonna stream the next phase, or on
Yeah.
the dwarf?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna like hang them up for a couple days and work on some other stuff and then revisit them later next week maybe. Uh because I
Most of what you're doing is just like the undercolors, right?
yeah,
You're gonna
exactly. And then I come over with, I'll do some sponge weathering, some highlighting, and I like to do a lot of like weathering pigments, because Necromunda I assume is just filthy.
Jeez, come on. Okay, you clearly need to be scraped. Pro tip sculpting. Sometimes I will take a razor blade and scrape the surface of my sculpture if I want to add some more green stuff to it, a detail on the surface.
Oh,
And
okay.
that will take like I think this figure has some of my the oils from my fingertips and stuff on the
Yep.
surface. That's keeping the green stuff from sticking. So I just carefully, without leaving any scratch marks, any if I can help it, I just scrape the surface completely dry.
Nice.
That's what I do right now, so I can get all these scales to stick.
Yeah, I have that problem with green stuff sculpting all the time where uh it's
But it sticks.
oils are preventing it from sticking. Yeah, so that's a good tip.
First part of what makes that happen, the scrapability, it's not pure green stuff. I mix my green stuff. I tell this to people on my stream all the time. I work with Amy's Epoxy Sculpt. It's like this. I'm not paid for this advertisement.
Nice. I often will
So I
do.
use Amy.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I will cut Amy's into green stuff 50/50, and
Yeah,
that gives it a really nice carvability, scrapability that
I
you don't get
do
with pure green stuff.
I do 50/50 with the like Procreate.
That works, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Procreate. I'm getting my products mixed up. Procreate is a two-part epoxy
Yeah,
too.
it's a gray two-part epoxy.
Okay, so it dries. It dries at the same. Does it slow down the drying time of the green stuff,
I think a
or
little
does it?
bit, but it also helps it dry a little harder and less kind of spring. You know how springy the green stuff
Oh
is
yeah,
when it dries. So it kind of it increases the hardness factor of the final
cool.
product.
Yeah, it sounds like it does a lot of the same things that epoxy sculpt does for me.
Yeah, I've heard of people using epoxy sculpt. I've also tried what's the it's not the name's not coming to me, but it's one of the other brands of sculpting stuff, but it's like gray stuff basically.
Milliput? No, it's not Milliput. What's gray?
I've done
I don't
milliput.
know.
I've done half milliput for sure. Full milliput I found was really hard to work with for fine details.
Faux Milliput?
What's that?
What did you call it?
Oh no, just the like just doing straight up milliput on its
Oh,
own without
oh,
mixing. I found that it's too it's too like kind of grainy. It doesn't hold detail as well as the green stuff does.
well, there's different versions of Milliput. Isn't there a Milliput Fine? Were
There
you using
is,
that?
yeah. I was not a big fan personally.
I don't know for a fact, and as a fan, I am not going to pester Bob Naismith about this. He's there, he's available. But he's moved on. He's doing 3D modeling. He's happy with his life, his grandkids. I'm not gonna bother about the stuff he did in the '80s. But I'm guessing what Bob Naismith was working with back in the early '80s and into the mid to late '80s with Citadel and stuff. I think he was using a lot of milliput. I'm pretty sure. When you look at a lot of his machine work and his robots and things, they have this carved look about them. It's drilled and carved and sanded feel.
Right.
And that you're working on today, I created in that vein. I'm not using milliput, I'm using the AVs, but I'm trying to employ the AVs in the same way that Bob might have done milliput, where I just create these hard shapes and then sand and file and carve them so that they have this rigidity to them, this crisp, just carved out of milliput feel. I
Yeah,
tried
yeah.
at least, and that's what I tried to do with that form that you were painting just now.
And here they are. I kind of reposition the
Sure.
camera. So the guys in back were already painted, but the guys up front are all fresh paint jobs, and I'm very
It's just
pleased
the
with how
first
far I
coat.
got in a couple of hours.
Do you have a micro cam like I do,
I
like
don't. It's
a
one of the it's
webcam?
one of the things on my to do list.
All right, so this one is cheap. Let me see if the brand's here. The Awesome. It's really cheap because the lens is like manual. So it locks in a
Oh,
certain space in front of you. It doesn't have any digital changes.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
look on your OBS and again you see the tools in OBS, most of them are grayed out. So it's a manual change on the lens, but Osdome. And this thing has a really good, if you can position your figures within a certain distance of it, it really locks in on the detail really sweetly.
That's
So
awesome.
I'm gonna be using this in the future myself.
Yeah, I need to check that out because yeah, that's one of the things that's on my kind of to buy list. Uh,
It's not expensive. It's like I think I got it for 25 bucks or something. It's really
nice.
cheap.
All right, well, it's been 2 hours, so I have to get back to my life. But it was really fun hanging out and hobbing with you. So thanks for joining me.
Thanks for giving my old hammer products the love they deserve.
All right, awesome. Well, I'll let you know next time I'm going on.